Ben Carson did a rapid-fire Q&A session with Glenn Beck on his policy positions. And we could talk about this all day long because he says a bunch of ridiculous stuff. But I want to narrow our focus on the drug war.
Do you continue the war on drugs?
Absolutely.
You do?
I intensify it.
Let me ask you a question. How? I mean, it doesn't seem to be working now.
Yeah, well, go down to the border in Arizona like I was a few weeks ago. I mean, it's an open highway, and the federal government isn't doing anything to stop it.
Really? That's the problem? You know, the problem is the federal government just isn't actually enforcing the drug war. That's the issue here. Do you know how much money we've spent on the drug war since it started? Over $1 trillion. Over $1 trillion. He's like, they're just not trying hard enough, man. I would intensify the drug war. Because that would fix absolutely everything, I'm sure. No, Ben. The reason why we have so many societal ills connected to this is because of the drug war and because drugs are illegal. And we have the evidence to back this up. So when you look at Portugal, where they decriminalize drugs, you have a lower rate of drug abuse, you have a lower rate of drug use, and you have, lower crime rate. On basically every single issue, every single substantive point that we'd all like to see improve, it has improved when you decriminalize drugs. Even when you look at Colorado, where they've legalized marijuana, the crime rate has gone down. There's been a plethora of positive results, never mind the revenue to the state. And this is the same thing. This is what, now the 100th time I've made the point on this show? This is the same thing that happened with prohibition of alcohol. When alcohol was illegal, the black market was thriving, and the mafia got incredibly powerful and incredibly rich. Ben, can't you see that that's exactly what's happening with the drug cartels right now? Because you've made it illegal, you've taken the money out of the hands of the official businessmen, and you've put the money directly into the hands or in the pockets of the drug cartels and the gangsters and the people who, by definition, are criminals because they're selling it on the black market. And then there's the problem of regulation. Back in the day when there was prohibition, people would die from drinking a bad batch of alcohol because it was made in fucking bathtubs with bad chemicals. And today, we've heard stories, we covered a story recently, a bad dose of heroin that was laced with fentanyl, which is a much more powerful opiate or opioid, people were overdosing and dying. Why? Because that's a much more powerful drug than heroin. The same kind of drug, opiate or opioid, but it's much more powerful, and people would take their normal heroin dose and they'd die, they'd overdose because they didn't realize that the drug was cut with fentanyl. If it was legal, taxed, and regulated, that wouldn't happen. And again, everybody, don't take my word for it. Who the fuck am I? Go listen to Dr. Carl Hart, who's an addiction specialist, and he's been talking about this now for years, and he goes into great detail as to how the problem isn't the drugs, the problem is everything else, the problem is the drug war, the problem is poverty, the problem is the economy. You tie in all these other factors, that's the issue. But do you really think, man, after all this time, after decades of the drug war, we have to intensify, you just weren't trying hard enough. Well, what more do you want to do? We already have the jails full of people who were just smoking weed or had cocaine or whatever. We have more people jailed in the U.S. than any other nation on earth. We have more people in prison in the U.S. today than Stalin did in his gulags at their height. That's a mind-blowing fact. He's like, no, you're not trying hard enough. So what do you want to do, big guy? Lock people up for drinking coffee, taking Xanax, drinking a Monster Energy? How about ban alcohol again? No, if you keep it illegal, the drug gangs will remain strong, crime will remain high, the drug cartels will remain powerful, and use and overdose rates will remain high. If you legalize it, tax it, and regulate it, the evidence shows that everything improves, and not only that, we have this added aspect of increased freedom, which is something that you say you're in favor of because you're a Republican who believes in small government, but you believe in freedom except for when you don't believe in freedom when it comes to substances, and then you're a big government authoritarian fascist.